What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Endzone Report. I'm your host, Mike McDaniel, for this year's Halloween special. I've got a fun episode for y'all today. We're going to catch up on some injuries coming out of Week 8, then we'll get into the storylines of Week 8. Got a lot of really cool storylines for y'all today. Then we'll check in with that Chase-O-meter. I know everyone's excited to see how that bet between Mr. James and Megan, the Gridiron Goddess, is going. Then we'll touch on the fantasy corner with this week's hero and villain. We got a tight end edition of hero and villain. Very exciting. Then we'll get into the week 9 game slate, including my Miami Dolphins going up against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday night. Very exciting to see my boy Tua slinging it to Jalen Waddle. Very, very exciting. And then we'll end the show like we always do with a fun fantasy lineup. As a reminder, you can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the Endzone Report. You can also listen to the audio version on Spotify. Also, check out the social media pages where we post all the injury updates and other trade rumors going around the league. Before we recorded today's episode, we just got word that Terry McLaurin has been ruled out for the Week 9 matchup. So he will not be in your fantasy lineups this week. You'll have to lean on Deebo Samuel and Mr. Zach Ertz for the Washington Commanders. So with that, let's head over to the injury report and see what's up with the NFL. Here are the top injuries coming out of Week 8 heading into Week 9. Cam Skattebo, running back of the New York Giants, unfortunately dislocated his ankle this past week. It was a very, very gruesome sight to watch live on the NFL. He will no longer be with the Giants this season. He did undergo successful surgery on that ankle to repair it, and he is expected to be a full go in the 2026 season. So Cam Skattebo will not be in the lineup for the rest of the year. It sounds like Tyrone Tracy will take the workload for the Giants on the ground. Sticking with running backs, Saquon Barkley left the game early with a groin injury. He is expected to make a return in Week 9, so it doesn't seem too serious, but we will monitor that one for sure. Quinshon Judkins, the rookie star running back for the Cleveland Browns, injured his shoulder. It's very up in the air if he does come back in Week 9, so be on the lookout for that. Jerome Ford will probably get involved, as well as Dylan Sampson, the fellow rookie, as well on the ground. So some mysteries going on in the running back room in Cleveland for sure. Wide receiver, Luther Burden III, rookie wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, suffered a concussion this past week, so we will monitor that for his status in Week 9. If he is ruled out, that of course means more targets for DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. We'll see if Cole Kmet starts. If he is not able to go either, that would leave fellow rookie Colston Loveland at tight end, and then Roma Dunze, who has been tearing up the field this year with the Chicago. He will be, of course, getting more targets on top of what he already gets. Quarterback. Unfortunately, Joe Flacco was banged up this past week. He has been a really fun addition to the Cincinnati Bengals offense, supporting Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown. We'll touch in with Chase Brown, of course, in a little bit. He, unfortunately, is dealing with a AC joint sprain in his shoulder, so we'll monitor that. If he is a no-go for Week 9, that means the Bengals will have to lean on Jake Browning once again. Looking at defense, Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals as well left the game early with a hip injury. His status is up in the air as well for Week 9. And then Pat Surtain of the Denver Broncos, superstar defensive man for the Broncos, suffered a shoulder injury. His status is unknown for Week 9 as well. Hopefully he does return for Denver. He is a very, very important piece of that defense. So that is this week's injury report. Let's head over to the Week 8 storylines. Our first storyline coming out of Week 8 is National Tight Ends Day. It was this past week. We're going to go over which tight ends got touchdowns on the glorious holiday, started by George Kittle. If you are not familiar with the history of Tight Ends Day, this was started back in 2018 by George Kittle, the tight end for the 49ers. It falls on the fourth Sunday in October. So we will look to next year for another holiday special. But for this week, tight ends that scored at least one touchdown on tight ends day were Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. He actually scored 2 touchdowns, so double celebrations for him. George Kittle himself scored a touchdown finally with the 49ers, as well as fellow tight end Jake Tongus of the Niners. Harold Fannin Jr., the rookie for the Cleveland Browns, scored one against the Patriots. Mason Taylor, rookie of the New York Jets, scored a touchdown. Hunter Henry scored a touchdown for the Patriots. David Njoku for the Browns as well. Charlie Kohler of the Ravens scored a touchdown. Gunnar Helm of the Titans scored a touchdown. And then Tucker Kraft, the tight end sensation of the year, scored 2 touchdowns on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Tucker Kraft has been tearing up the field this year with the Green Bay Packers, and we look forward to seeing more of him. So that is your tight end roundup on National Tight Ends Day in Week 8 of the 2025 season. We look forward to the 2026 National Tight Ends Day to see who all scores on that holiday for sure. The next storyline, I'm looking at you, refs. Hashtag refs gotta go. Tush Push has got to get banned. If you're not familiar what is going on with that storyline. So the Philadelphia Eagles performed their almost guaranteed tush push against the division rivals New York Giants this past week. But there was one instance where the refs definitely got it wrong. Jalen Hurts was reaching over to get that first down, rolled over on the pile, and was basically taking the ball away from him in a matter of seconds. I believe it was Thibodeau was the one to grab it out of Jalen Hurts' hand. Refs called it dead, and there was no earning of the fumble, which it was indeed a fumble on the Giants' part. This definitely would have changed the outcome of the game, I do believe. So the refs definitely got it wrong. They have been getting plays wrong all over the season. Before that fumble debacle, they did get it wrong on the Jake Elliott kick as well early on in that game. And obviously the big headline is the Kansas City Chiefs and their connection to the refs on the field when they are playing. The big fan theory is that the Chiefs are in the back pocket of the refs and to make sure that they basically appear in the Super Bowl every year for marketing reasons. And the NFL has instructed the refs to make sure that the Chiefs win enough games in order to get it to the Super Bowl. Now, that's kind of a big outlandish theory, but each week it's starting to look more and more likely. But I am not going to make a stand on the show today. I'm just giving you what the facts are. But that was, in fact, a fumble that should have been rewarded to the Giants. So the refs have to go. They have to seriously look at that Philly Giants game this past week and really investigate those refs, and they need to do something. It's just getting too ridiculous. I think the tush push, as much as I respect it going into this season, it needs to get banned. They are constantly not getting flagged for false starts, for neutral zone infractions. This is just getting too out of hand and getting too reckless. So the tush push needs to be banned, and I will be banning it in the coaches' meeting for sure. Me, Mike McDaniel, am against the tush push for now on. Storyline number 3, the Jets finally going to win. Those dang Jets. They are in our division, and we are going to beat them. But the Jets ended up winning their first game of the year against the Cincinnati Bengals. They seriously need to look at the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. That was such an ugly game to give up. They were up by multiple touchdowns, and then the Jets ended up coming back, winning it 39-38. That was the closest game of the week, actually. Everywhere else was pretty much a blowout on the winning side. This was the closest game of the week, and the Jets ended up coming out on top with a final field goal, I believe it was. So the Jets finally win a game in the 2025 season against the Cincinnati Bengals, 39-38. I would say adios to the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think Zach Taylor is on the hot seat if he does not get that thing going in the right direction. Storyline number 4, we already touched up on it, but the Giants lost their superstar running back Cam Skattebo this past weekend to a dislocated ankle, and it was quite a sight. Very disturbing. I'm so glad that the news broadcasters only showed it a couple of times and then agreed to not show it again because it was a disgusting image. And all prayers and thoughts to Cam Scatterbu, of course. He is expected to return next season, full go, ready to go for week 1, but we will see. There's going to be quite a lengthy recovery for him. He did have successful surgery, I believe, this past Monday. So that is good to know that he is in good spirits and good health, hopefully within the next, few months down the road. But what did the Giants look like without Cam Scatterbu? It's going to be very interesting. Tyrone Tracy will take over the bulk of the snaps with Devin Singletary behind him. They have no Malik Neighbors still. They're constantly kind of rotating out these wide receivers with Wan'Dale Robinson, with Darius Slayton. Theo Johnson has been a pretty dependable target for Jackson Dart. So we'll see what this Giants team looks like without Cam Scatterbu. It's very, very clear that without him, teams like Philadelphia are going to crush them. Now maybe they'll get some good matchups down the road, but it's going to be an interesting ride for the Giants without their star running back, Cam Scatterbu. We're going to look forward to seeing him next year because he has been quite a breakout star as far as the rookies go in 2025. So thoughts and prayers to Mr. Scatterbu of the New York Giants. And then lastly, we're getting close to the trade deadline. That is November 4th. So we're going to go over some trade deadline rumors. Breece Hall is the number one rumor. We've been hearing about it even before the season started. He is the running back of the New York Jets. I'm very anticipating that he will get traded. Now, the Dolphins, we don't need him. We got my boy Devon Achane. But, Buzz has been roaming around with the Chiefs and maybe the Broncos or some of these other running back needy teams. Maybe the Giants even make a play for him, with Cam Scatterbu not being on the field with Tyrone Tracy. The Saints have been one to be brought up because they've been wanting to get rid of Alvin Kamara, but it sounds like Kamara himself doesn't want to leave the Saints. But maybe if they sign Breece Hall, that kind of forces their hand to kick Alvin Kamara to the curb. There's also the Cardinals, with losing James Conner for the rest of the year. I would put the Cardinals up there as a top team to go after Breece Hall. So we'll see what happens at the trade deadline, but I'm very, very anticipating that Breece Hall will not be a Jet going forward. Jacoby Myers has been getting a lot of trade buzz too. He himself has requested to be traded from the Vegas Raiders multiple times. It sounds like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Broncos are all in contention. I think even the Steelers are in there. Those are rumored connections to him. The Broncos would be very interesting with Cortland Sutton. That would boost Bo Nix drastically. Josh Allen has been been wanting a wide receiver one for a while. I hope he doesn't go there because that would be very bad for my Dolphins. But who's to say that he doesn't become a Bill? And that is going to be very exciting for Mr. Josh Allen. The Chiefs, they clearly have Rashee Rice, but maybe they want to add on to that wide receiver room because Marquise Brown just isn't what they wanted. Xavier Worthy is still getting the reins of this team, this offense. He's still very young, so he has a lot to learn. Travis Kelce is probably on his last year with the Chiefs, so they're going to need weapons for Patrick Mahomes. So wouldn't be very shocking if Jacoby Myers ended up signing with a Super Bowl contending team like the Chiefs. The Steelers would be really fun with DK Metcalf. So maybe Rodgers says, hey, I need another target to throw out. I can't just throw everything to Metcalf. And Tomlin is like, okay, we'll go get Jacoby Myers. Sticking with the wide receivers, Calvin Ridley has been thrown up too in the trade rumors. He is the current wide receiver one for the Tennessee Titans. They obviously are in fire sale right now with the current state of that offense. But I could also see that he doesn't end up getting traded because nobody is really interested in him. He is very injury prone. So we will see what his status is after the deadline. David Njoku has been popping up a lot, especially with Harold Fannin, that rookie tight end that's been really great for the Browns. It could be time for David Njoku to find a different team for a tight end needy team. Same with TJ Hawkinson. He's another tight end that's been brought up. I think he was a rumor circled with the Denver Broncos. I know the Broncos have been wanting to get a tight end in the building since Evan Ingram hasn't really been working out. And then this one is unofficial, but it has been brought up quite a bit the last few weeks. A.J. Brown could be traded for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know he signed a pretty massive deal with the Eagles, but he seems to be very unhappy with the current state of the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe they start shopping him around to get some assets out of him. while they can, and he goes and joins another Super Bowl contending team. So it'll be very interesting to see if A.J. Brown does leave the Philadelphia Eagles. That would leave Devonta Smith, obviously, as the wide receiver 1. So that would most likely break the league, just like that trade did back when he was traded from the Titans to the Eagles. This would be a massive, massive trade if Philly does part ways with Mr. A.J. Brown. So those are the storylines coming out of Week 8. Very exciting news coming out with the November 4th trade deadline coming up. Let's head over to the Chase-O-Meter. Very exciting Chase-O-Meter this week. Chase Brown did some work. It very much benefited him having Joe Flacco come over from the Cleveland Browns. It was very exciting to see him get back to form. His current running back ranking right now is 18. He jumped from 30 to 18 after 1 week. That is pretty impressive. His fantasy points, again, depending on your league standards, the one that I run is 25.5 fantasy points, which is his highest of the year. He had 12 carries for 73 rushing yards, and then he had 3 catches for another 32 yards, and then he had 2 total touchdowns, 1 in the air and 1 on the ground. No fumbles, no negative yardage. That was really positive to see. So Mr. Chase Brown is sitting at running back 18. Not too far from top 10. So Megan, the Gridiron Goddess, is still in play for that $20. So we will catch up with Chase Brown coming out of Week 9. Very exciting matchup for him, for sure. So that'll do it for the weekly reaction. We're going to head over to Fantasy Corner for this week's hero and villain. This week's hero of the week is Green Bay Packers tight end Tucker Kraft. His fantasy points this week was 33.3 fantasy points. Massive week-winning numbers for sure. He had 9 targets, 7 receptions for 143 receiving yards, and he scored 2 touchdowns. Very massive week from Tucker Kraft. So if you had him going Sunday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you probably had a really good lead or catched up to your opponent if you were behind coming into Sunday night. So excellent job from Mr. Tucker Kraft, tight end of the Green Bay Packers, for being this week's hero of the week. Another tight end, villain of the week, is unfortunate, but Jake Ferguson, tight end of the Dallas Cowboys, who is the current tight end 1 on the year, is this week's villain of the week. He had 0 fantasy points, zilch, nada, goose egg. If you started him, you probably lost your league or came very close to losing. He had 1 target, 0 receptions, 0 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns on week 8. So he was absolutely eviscerated from the field. Dak Prescott didn't even need him. He had CeeDee Lamb and he had George Pickens. Now, granted, Denver Broncos were pretty much crushing him, so I'm sure that those Broncos fans are like, well, yeah, he had 0 points because you can't score with a tight end on the Denver Broncos. They're like the number 1 against tight ends, so not surprising there. But you probably most likely started Jake Ferguson this week because he is the consensus tight end 1 so far in the year. So unfortunate, but I would expect him to bounce back coming into week 9 for sure. So that is this week's hero and villain of week 8. Let's take a break, and then we'll head into the week 9 game slate. Before we get into the week 9 slate, we're going to rewind and see what Chris got wrong in week 8. He went 8-5 last week. The 5 that he got wrong were the Chicago Bears. Baltimore ended up winning that game without Lamar. We already talked about the Jets game. The Jets ended up beating the Cincinnati Bengals. The San Francisco 49ers lost to Houston. Even though Vegas was favoring Houston, Chris ended up going with the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, Vegas knew something that we all didn't because C.J. Stroud looked unstoppable. The Houston Texans pretty much controlled that game 90% of the time. The Niners just were done. Christian McCaffrey only had like 25 yards rushing for that whole game. So obviously Vegas knew something that we didn't. Houston ended up winning. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost to Green Bay on Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers facing his old team in Pittsburgh. And then Chris didn't pick Miami Dolphins. He ended up picking the Atlanta Falcons, which I'm sure a lot of people did because you guys are not very impressed with the Dolphins right now, which I totally understand, but we are bouncing back. Tua looked amazing against the Falcons. He had 20 completions, 205 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He only got sacked once. So bravo to the offensive line for doing their job and protecting Tua. So you should have picked the Dolphins last week. If you did, you're feeling very happy. They won 34-10. If you didn't, don't underestimate my Dolphins this week against Baltimore. So, looking into the Week 9 slate, we've got the Miami Dolphins at home. My home are facing the Baltimore Ravens. They should have Lamar Jackson back. Baltimore is favored by 7.5 points. The over-under is a whopping 50.5. I think we're going to go with the Miami Dolphins because Tua was amazing last week, and we're going to ride it. We're going to ride this Miami Dolphins at home because I trust my boy Tua. I trust to give him to Jalen Waddle, and I trust that Javon Achane is going to ground and pound against this terrible Baltimore Ravens defense. Mike, stick to the notes, Mike. We're not taking the Miami Dolphins on Thursday night. We're taking Lamar and the Ravens. Mike, no. We're not going to pick the Dolphins. We're going to pick Baltimore Ravens, I guess. Baltimore to win the game on Thursday night. That is what Chris wants us to do. So we are going to pick the Baltimore Ravens. Sorry, Tua. I tried to fight for you, but we're just going to do it. All right. Baltimore Ravens is the pick for Week 9. Heading over to New England. New England Patriots take on the Atlanta Falcons. New England is favored by 5.5 points. The over-under is 45.5. Drake May has been slinging it. He's a top 5 quarterback so far this season. So we're going to ride that train, and we're going to, unfortunately, pick my division rival with the Patriots. But the Falcons have been so unpredictable this year. We're going to go with the New England Patriots to win at home against maybe Kirk Cousins again. Maybe Michael Penix comes back. We're not sure. Drake London should hopefully be back for Atlanta. But we're going to stick with the hot hand, and we're going to go with Drake May and the Patriots. The Carolina Panthers head to Green Bay to face Jordan Love and the Packers. The Packers are a favored whopping 13.5 points. The over-under is 44.5. So they are anticipating the Panthers to only score 20-some points. That doesn't sound a whole lot. It looks like Andy Dalton will start again at quarterback. Micah Parsons is going to have a field day with Andy Dalton, I'm sure. Rico Dowdle has been great on the ground, but Dalton's got no trustworthy receivers outside of the rookie sensation, Ted McMillan. So we're going to go with the Green Bay Packers to annihilate the Panthers this week. Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs, Micah Parsons on the other side of the ball. They're going to get it done this week at home in Lambeau against the Panthers. The Denver Broncos head to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are actually favored by 1.5. What does Vegas know about Houston? The over-under is 39.5. I think that looks like the lowest of the week. Let me double check. That is the lowest of the week right now, according to Vegas. So they are anticipating this to be a very, very low-scoring game. But we're going to go with Denver Broncos. Bo Nix has been looking great. He's finally made a connection with Troy Franklin, the fellow Oregon Duck. Cortland Sutton has been getting a lot of targets. The defense looks incredible. Now, maybe Vegas knows something about Pat Surtain's injury that we don't know. So that's why Houston is favored. But we're going to ride the Bronco train, and we're going to pick the Denver Broncos to win against Houston on the road. Los Angeles Chargers take on Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. The Chargers are favored by 8.5 points. The over-under is 43.5. It's tough picking Cam Ward, so we're gonna ride the Herbert fully loaded train, and we're gonna pick the Chargers to defeat the Tennessee Titans. Chicago Bears take on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bears are favored by 3. The over-under is a whopping 50.5. I gotta imagine this is anticipating that Joe Flacco will start. We're gonna go with, let's see, who should we go with here? That is a tricky one for sure. Let's see what we have in our docs here. Looks like we're going with the Bengals. Chris wants us to pick the Bengals, so we are going to take Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins to outlast the Chicago Bears. That is a tough game to pick. Caleb Williams has been looking really solid. Rome Odunze has become the number one wide receiver for that team. But we're going to go with Joe Flacco slinging the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on Sunday. The Indianapolis Colts, who are on a hot streak right now, 7-1, best record of the season so far, taking on Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Colts are favored by they're favored by 3. Another 50.5 over-under for this game. They're anticipating this being a shootout. We're going to ride the Danny Dimes Express, and we're going to take the Colts to go 8-1 after week 9. So the Colts are our pick for this week against Aaron Rodgers. San Francisco 49ers take on the New York Giants in New York. San Francisco is favored by 2.5. The over-under is 48.5. This is another tricky one. With the way that the Niners have been playing, it's pretty much an even split here. Looking on the Sleeper app, looks like it's 58% in favor of the Niners, 42% in favor of the Giants. We're going to go with C-Mac and George Kittle to bounce back from week 8 and win week 9. Still no word on if it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, but we're going to ride this out. Whoever is at quarterback, I don't think it's going to matter in this game. So we're going to go with the Niners and cross our fingers that we are correct. We got a big NFC North division battle here. Minnesota Vikings go on the road to take on the Detroit Lions. Detroit is favored by 8.5 points. The over-under is 48.5. J.J. McCarthy sounds to be the starter in this game because Carson Wentz, who we haven't mentioned yet on the show, has to undergo season-ending surgery on his shoulder. So he would be out for the remainder of the year. They did sign John Wolford, I believe, to their practice squad. So you've got J.J. McCarthy, and then Brosmer will back him up at QB. So we will close our eyes and hope for the best if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan. I haven't seen any update on Van Ginkel yet. Let's see if I can find any kind of update on Mr. Van Sprinkles here. Van Ginkel update. There is an update for Mr. Andrew Van Ginkel. Let's see what that update is. He's been... Return date is not totally clear, so there is a possibility that he will be missing week 9. So we are going to go with the Detroit Lions. I am sorry, Skull Vikings, but we are going to take Jared Goff at home, and we're going to pick the Detroit Lions to win this big NFC North division battle. The New Orleans Saints take on the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are favored of a whopping 14.5 points. The over-under is 43.5. Tyler Shuck has been named the quarterback 1 after the benching of Spencer Rattler. Stafford coming off of the bye with Kyron Williams, and hopefully it sounds like Puka Nacua will return to the lineup alongside Devontae Adams. So this is going to be a disaster for the Saints. They're going to have to seriously consider their next move after potentially being wiped off the face of the earth by McVay and the Rams this week. So we're gonna tune in to this, but I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of action coming out from the Saints side. This is shaping up to be all Rams, so we're gonna pick the Los Angeles Rams to dominate the New Orleans Saints. The Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Las Vegas Raiders, who just acquired Tyler Lockett. So we'll see if he gets any action this Sunday with his old head coach and quarterback. The Jaguars are favored by -3. The over-under is 44.5. We're going to go with Jackson. Nope, we're going to go with the Raiders, it looks like. We're going to pull up an upset, and we're going to pick the Raiders, it looks like, according to Chris's doc. So Geno Smith, we're going to cross our fingers and hope he gets it done with maybe Brock Bowers. I wonder if there is an update on Brock Bowers. He has been out for quite a number of weeks. If he is playing, that will be good news for this Raider offense. Okay, so there is a huge injury update for Brock Bowers as of a couple hours ago. Let's see what that update is. He will be a full participant at practice today, so that is good. So we're going to roll with that. Brock Bowers will be back, probably in a limited fashion. But even if he's out on a snap count, he is still better than what they're going with right now. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope we get this upset correct, and we're going to pick the Las Vegas Raiders against the Jaguars. We got our matchup of the week here. Kansas City Chiefs go on the road to Buffalo to take on Josh Allen and the Bills. This is an afternoon game, surprisingly. I'm very curious as to why they didn't flex this to the night game. That is very, very interesting. I wonder if they will do a last-second flex. Yeah, that is the afternoon game because then we have... Yeah, that is very, very interesting. I wonder if they'll... I'm very surprised they didn't flex this game, but it's only Wednesday, so maybe they will flex this game to Sunday night. But anyways, I digress. The Chiefs are favored by 1.5. The over-under is a whopping 52.5. And that surprisingly is not the highest of the week, according to FanDuel. I'm going off of FanDuel's odds right here. We're going to pick the Buffalo Bills at home. Josh Allen is looking unstoppable, even though Patrick Mahomes has been looking unstoppable himself, and they have been on a hot streak the last few weeks. But I think we're going to cut the Chiefs' streak short, and we're going to pick the Buffalo Bills to beat them in Buffalo. That's going to be a very, very exciting game. That is the matchup of the week here at the Endzone Report. Sunday Night Football. We have got the Seattle Seahawks coming off the bye and taking on the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin, like I said before, has been ruled out for this game, so Deebo Samuel will be the wide receiver 1 for Jaden Daniels, hopefully. It sounds like Jaden Daniels is to report back to practice today, Wednesday practice, so that is looking very, very good for his return this week. They're going to need him in this game. Marcus Mariota is not going to get it done. Seattle's got a very decent defense this year. Sam Darnold has been incredible with Jackson Smith-Njigba coming in to his stardom for sure. Who are we going to take in this game? We are going to take Seattle on the road against the Commanders. I think Jaden Daniels coming back is not enough for us to pick the Commanders, especially with Terry McLaurin out once again. So we're going to ride the Sam Darnold Express, and we're going to pick the Seattle Seahawks to take the Commanders on the road. Monday Night Football, we've got Arizona Cardinals taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are favored by 2.5. This is the highest over-under of the week at 53.5. We are, of course, taking Dallas to bounce back from that beating that they were given by the Denver Broncos. The Cardinals are just a mess right now. Kyler is injured. We'll see if Brissett comes out and starts once again. But right now it sounds like Kyler Murray will be potentially starting in this game. No James Conner, so that running back room is kind of a mess. No update on Trey Benson as well. So looking like Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight is the guy. Michael Wilson has been a decent target for Kyler Murray. Marvin Harrison, of course, is the star wide receiver. And then Trey McBride will get his fair share. But with this defense, that's probably why the over-under is so massive, because the Dallas Cowboys has the worst defense in the league right now. But we're picking the Dallas Cowboys to take down the Arizona Cardinals in Dallas. So those are the Week 9 picks presented by me, Mr. Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. So that was a lot of fun. Let's end the show with a fun fantasy lineup on DraftKings. This week's DraftKings lineup is a $5 entry fee for potentially first place winnings of $500. We did not win any money last week on the lineup, so we're going to hope for the best on this week's lineup. At quarterback, we're rolling with Lamar Jackson. He is sitting at $6,900 this week on DraftKings against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday night. At running back, we've got David Montgomery at $5,000 and then Javonte Williams at $7,000. So you're paying up for him against the Cardinals this week. At wide receiver, Zay Flowers to stack with Lamar Jackson. He is at $5,400. Ladd McConkey is at $6,000 and Michael Pittman Jr. is at $5,900 this week. Michael Pittman Jr. has been quite a surprise this year in fantasy. I believe he's a top 10, potentially top 6 wide receiver this year. So very exciting. We're going to roll with the Pittman Express on that one. At tight end, we're going with Colston Loveland. Crossing our fingers that Cole Kmet does get ruled out in this game or is limited. So he is only at 3,300. So we're going to roll the dice with Mr. Loveland. And then at the flex position, we are going wide receiver this week with Devontae Adams at 7,500. So we paid up to get him. He has been on a roll, especially with the absence of Puka Nacua. So coming off of the bye against a very terrible New Orleans defense, we're going to go with Devontae Adams. I wanted a piece of that game for sure. He was a cheaper option than Puka Nacua, and with the injury of Puka, we're just going to roll with Devontae Adams since he is the healthiest. And then at defense, we're going to go with the Ravens, unfortunately, against my Miami Dolphins, but I totally understand it. Tua tends to sling it too much and overthrow and throw some interceptions and fumble, but I will talk to him about that. But looks like we're going with the Ravens, even though I don't like it, but we're going that direction, I guess. So that is today's show, hosted by me, Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. We're going to see you all on Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens. I hope you all have a fun week of fantasy and football. Hope you win all your bets and your fantasy matchups. And happy Halloween. Stay spooky in this season, and we'll see you all on week 9.